Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, and I'm joined today by attorney Cesar Gavidia. And we're going to give an overview video about the Emeritus Insurance Company, and specifically, we're going to talk about long term disability insurance claims. Now, Cesar, we've been handling Emeritus claims for many years, going back to the day when they were known as the Union Central Insurance Company, which was bought out. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago when they merged with Emeritus and then had this whole branding name of Emeritus. But Emeritus is basically sells all individual disability policies, and you have a tremendous amount of experience in handling the individual disability policies, which have a significant advantage over the ERISA group disability policies because of the fact that you have your right to jury trial and the right to potentially punitive damages or bad faith damages and things like that that you don't have with a group policy. So all of our potential clients for the Emeritus that we've represented have been doctors, business owners, and independent business professionals. But from your experience of handling Emeritus claims, what type of definition of disability do you usually see in those policies?
So what you typically find in one of the Emeritus individual disability insurance policies is a own occupation definition of total disability. What that means is basically what you're insuring is your ability to perform the substantial material duties of your specific occupation, be it a dentist, be it a chiropractor, a lawyer, or a surgeon, or whatever. That's what you're specifically insuring with these disability insurance policies through Emeritus typically, or Union Central if you have one of the older Union Central products.
So the thing with Emeritus, much like many of the other companies that sell the individual disability insurance policies, is that when you buy these policies, they come with options. And certainly all of them come with a standard 24-month own occupation definition of disability, which is what you just talked about, which is basically the best definition. But they also have multiple different options where it could change from own occupation to any gainful occupation or any occupation that you could possibly do. Some have lifetime benefits, some don't have lifetime benefits if that's an option. I know I've seen older Union Central policies that had that. I don't know if Emeritus is offering that now. And then, of course, there's limitations, whether it's mental nervous, saying we're only going to pay you for a limited pay period. And I believe that Emeritus policies do have some limited pay benefit pay periods in their policies. What's the disadvantage if a claimant has either one, a limited benefit period, a limitation in the policy, or when they went through underwriting, they put a rider limitation on their policy?
Yeah, and that usually occurs if there's some sort of pre-existing condition. And a pre-existing condition doesn't necessarily have to be something that you've had an ongoing diagnosis of for many years. It could be something that when they're doing their underwriting, you might have gone to see a doctor once for. For example, you go to your doctor complaining of some low back pain, okay? It happens. I mean, many people suffer from acute low back pain. It may come after some strenuous activity, or it may just occur out of the blue for no reason. You go see your doctor about it, you complain of it, or you go to a chiropractor to have an adjustment done, and maybe a little bit of therapy or something. And when you go apply for that disability insurance policy with Emeritus, they come back and tell you, well, based on this history you have where you went in for this treatment, or you had this complaint or this diagnosis, we need to place this limitation on this policy or this exclusion rider on this policy. And what that does and the impact that has is if it's an exclusion rider, that condition will be completely precluded or excluded from coverage, meaning that if you were to become disabled due to that condition, you couldn't seek benefits from Emeritus for that disabling condition. It'd be excluded. A limitation would basically be a rider or language within the insurance policy that says we'll cover you for this condition, but only for a very limited or specific period of time. It could be 12 months, it could be 24 months, it could be whatever the insurance company decides they want to do.
So we've represented claimants at all stages of a claim against Emeritus, whether they're applying, they've been denied, and they want to try to do an internal appeal to the company, which means we avoid a lawsuit. And the last stage, obviously, being litigation against Emeritus. But people always ask us, well, what's your take on Emeritus as a company and how they handle claims? And I can tell you, having represented lots of different claimants with Emeritus over the years, that while they're part of a big conglomerate group and mostly have a lot of life insurance type products, disability is not the big bulk of their business, and they really run what I call, in my opinion, a mom and pop shop there. I don't know the exact number, but I tend to get repeatedly the same claims examiners over there who are handling the claim. I find that they try to be timely on what they're doing with their claims handling, but they're often delayed in making claim decisions, often come back with different excuses of, oh, we still need this or we still need that. And I think it's unlike many of the other bigger companies that we deal with who have a lot of resources. I feel that Emeritus often has to go outside of their company and doesn't have the internal resources to properly evaluate a claim, and so therefore it takes them longer time. What is your take on when you're dealing with Emeritus, who may not have as many internal resources to evaluate a claim, and the fact that they go to outside third parties often to evaluate the medical perspective of a claimant's eligibility for benefits?
Well, that's just as you said, that's not really an uncommon thing to see with Emeritus, considering the size of the operation over there. There's just not the personnel, right? So they might reach out to an outside vendor who then reaches out to a number of doctors in perhaps the specialty area for the condition that you're seeking disability from, to do a medical review of your records, right? So after you've compiled all of your records and you've sent them into them, now they're taking time to put everything together, ship it out to some third-party vendor who then ships it out to this third-party doctor to do this medical review, to come back and answer certain specific questions that Emeritus has. Mainly, what kind of restrictions and limitations does this person have due to their condition? What diagnosis do you think they have? Do you think they're under the appropriate care and treatment for the condition they're claiming disability from? So they ask them a number of questions about your condition and how it impacts your ability to function physically or perhaps even cognitively or mentally. That's with regards to the types of doctors that they reach out to, or are they insurance company type of doctors? Are they going to be biased? I mean, you have to assume that they're not there to be your friend, they're not there to help you, they're not there to try to make this claim for you and help you along. Okay, they're usually there to find some basis or some support to say you're not entitled to these benefits, or that the restrictions or the limitations that are being placed on you are not reasonable. Okay, that they don't appear to be supported by the medical records or the medical evidence.
So what is your opinion, though? Even though we mentioned, look, they have a nurse and they have an in-house doctor, of course, that they can go to. But when you mentioned they go to a third-party company who then goes to these other doctors, do you find that that's an independent review?
I really don't think it's very independent. I mean, you're going back to these third-party vendors, and you and I have seen these guys at these conventions that we've gone to, right? We've gone to some of these disability conferences where, the big disability insurance companies are all there, and who else is there? Well, all the lawyers that they typically hire, because they're there to network, they're there to generate business with these insurance companies so that they hire them when they get sued. And who else is there? Well, these vendors, right? Because they want to get hired. They want to have business from these insurance companies. So how independent can they really be when they're flying across the country? Some of these vendors are going from California to New York, clear across the country, to meet with the insurance company executives and these personnel that make the hiring decisions to who they use. And what are they looking for? I mean, they're looking for these specialists and doctors who are going to understand how to look at this information, how to digest it, and how to give them the responses and the answers that they want, right? And of course, if these guys end up in depositions, or these specialists end up in depositions or on cross-examination in a court case, they know how to basically carry themselves and how to respond.
And I think the other thing from a business perspective, and I don't necessarily blame Emeritus and many of the other companies who do this, is that they're not going to carry on their payroll one of each doctor in every medical specialty. But what you get with that is that the companies, these third-party companies, and they often probably go to the same one or two companies. So while it's not their own doctor, they have this relationship ongoing with this third-party company who knows the insurance company who's paying me is asking me to find a doctor, and it's not said, oh, find a doctor who's not going to approve the claim, but it's obviously, in my opinion, and from what we usually see, skewed towards the insurance company because everyone knows you're being paid, you're being hired by the disability insurance company. All the questions are coming from the insurance company. So is it fully independent? Absolutely not. Does it mean that you can't get a fair review? It doesn't mean that, but it's biased right out of the box any way you look at it in terms of the reviews. So I wanted to give a little guidance here on what someone, and I want you to do this relatively quickly, a snapshot of a person who now is in a position they need to file a claim with Emeritus. What is the basics of the documentation that you think they're going to need to support their claim?
Well, really depending on the occupation, right, of the insured. Let's take, for example, they're a business owner, okay? We'll make it very simple. They're a business owner. Well, across the board, any insured that applies for disability benefits is going to need to provide their medical records and a list of all their treatment providers, who they've seen for their disabling condition, perhaps even all the doctors they've seen for anything. Emeritus is going to want that information. In terms of that business owner, they're going to want tax returns. They're going to want ledgers. They may want your calendars and schedules. They may want anything that tracks the volume of clients that you interact with or that you sign contracts with, right? They may not ask for the specific contracts. And if they do, and I have in some cases, we've had to go through and painstakingly redact, personal information from these contracts and everything. But they may want that information so that they could see the volume of business you're doing pre-disability and post-disability. How's that impacting your income? How's that impacting your revenue? With regards to revenue and finances, we said the tax returns, corporate and personal returns, they're always going to want to see those. And they're going to want to see your profit and loss statements. Not just your profit and loss statements, because I've seen a lot of people provide profit and loss statements that provide like an annual P&L or a quarterly P&L. They want the monthly profit and loss statements. So a breakdown of your monthly revenue coming in, expenses, and profit that you're generating after all of that, all the expenses are deducted.
So, and we have another video that we've done where we talk about applying for disability benefits as well as specifically applying for disability benefits with Emeritus, which digs into a lot more detail. So I highly recommend that someone watches that video for some guidance in that area. And then in terms of your experience when it comes to litigating with Emeritus, what is that process like and how long does that usually take from when a claim's denied until you reach some kind of resolution?
So we try to move on these disability claims and lawsuits as soon as we can, as soon as it's ready to happen. There have been cases with Emeritus where our client has hired us, but we see that they may benefit from additional workup before a lawsuit's filed, even though they've been denied. Right. Okay. So depending on those types of things, I never sacrifice the quality of the case just to move on it and get a lawsuit filed. Of course, if there's some sort of statute of limitations issue or something like that, then we have to move on it immediately. You don't have any time to waste or to spare. But if the case is going to benefit from some additional workup, maybe having a third-party consultant look at the medical records or examine the client, or have some sort of review done of production codes or something like that. That's something that we'll do because it enhances the case. It betters the case. And that if Ameritas takes that information after we've submitted it and then still decides to uphold their decision, then bring in the lawsuit at that point in time. So, it really depends on the case, on the facts of the case, on what the case needs. But assuming that everything is set, that the lawsuit's ready to go, from the time a lawsuit's filed, okay, before they even respond to the lawsuit that you file, it could take anywhere from 30 to 60 days, from a month to 2 months. And then from there, you enter the litigation stages of discovery, where we're conducting production requests, subpoenas, depositions. So all that can take time, and it also all depends on the track that the court places you on. And most federal courts now, and most courts in general, place you on a 1-year track. Okay, so from the time you file the lawsuit, 12 months out, okay, you can expect to be in trial. That's what we are typically seeing. Things can be delayed and things may be extended depending on the court, depending on what the parties need. But from the onset of litigation, usually we're talking to defense counsel. We're discussing the issues in the case with them, and sometimes even putting together a plan to conduct mediation or some sort of alternative dispute resolution, like settlement discussions with them. All right. That's sometimes in the best interest of the case. And why would that be? Well, because building a case for litigation and litigating takes a lot of time, and it takes an extensive amount of resources and a lot of money. So even though we have no problem financing a litigation case or spending what needs to be spent to get a case, the right value out of the case, or get the case ready for trial, early settlement discussions sometimes, if they're going to be productive, if it's going to be fruitful, you can benefit from that because you don't go through that expensive litigation.
Right. And again, we have a whole other video where we talk about the litigation. But, we want to do this video to touch on the overview of different aspects we've seen with, with Ameritas, and the fact that we are available to consult with any clients nationwide about their claim with Ameritas at any stage. But I highly recommend that a claimant send us a copy of their policy, send us a copy of a denial letter if they've been denied. Whether it's you, myself, any of our other lawyers, will immediately review your disability policy, and we'll talk to you on the phone, give you our opinion as to how we think we can help you. There's no charge whatsoever for that. And then we'll let you know about what a reasonable attorney fee relationship would be, so that we can help you to get your benefits secured. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to get the benefits paid. And also, we want you to spend a little bit of time on our website, look up Ameritas, look at the reviews, the comments, the questions and answers that we've made, and all of the articles that we've written about not just Ameritas, but many companies, so that you get an understanding of what it's like to deal with a disability insurance claim from the other side, the side you maybe never thought you'd have to deal with, which is possibly getting denied or being strung along or being delayed by Ameritas. And so once you start to understand the culture and how the claim's handled, you're going to be in a much better position to get the benefits approved. So we appreciate you taking the time to watch our video. We put videos like this out all the time. We'll be here when you need us, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future.